let's take a look at our top selections.
Hey everybody, Mike Beer here taking a look at the lone stakes race on the Sunday card at Aqueduct. Race number 7 is your feature. It is the Biogio's Rose. Let's take a look at this field right now. 6 New York bred fillies and mares. They're going to go a 1-turn mile here on the main track. The purse is $100,000. Morning line favorite and horse to beat in here, number 4, Lucky Move. This is a very nice New York bred, well-traveled. She's been around for a while. She tends to show up and run every single time. Her last 2 races have come against open company stakes rivals. Didn't win either of those races, but didn't run poorly either time. Her 2 starts prior to that both came against New York breds. They were both stakes victories. She's a really, really nice horse. She's going to cut back to a 1-turn mile here. I guess that could be, more than anything else, could be the sticking point for Lucky Move. She is a horse who feels like she wants longer distances and really excels at longer distances. So perhaps cutting back to a 1-turn mile brings some other horses into this race. Lucky Move, however, is the horse to beat in here. I wanted to start off, we'll talk about the Timeform US pace projector first. Lucky Move is a horse who you're going to see way out of this thing at the back of the pace projector. She is not a speed horse. That's probably one of the reasons why she really likes longer distances. She can find her stride and make one run. So she'll be at the back of this pack early. Timeform US notes it as a blue bar situation here, which suggests that it favors horses on or near the early lead. The number 6 Wasp should be forward in here. The number 3 Espresso Shot is a horse who, when she's good and at her best, she can be forward in a race as well. So we'll see how the pace plays out. I don't expect them to go fast for sure. We'll see how slow they go, and we'll see if it compromises the favorite. And here, let's start off talking about Wasp, however, the number 6. She's 3-1 on the line, trained by Todd Pletcher. This is a horse who feels like she has a lot of things going for her. She was a very expensive 2-year-old in training purchase back in 2019. She did not debut until October of her 3-year-old year. 4 starts so far for Pletcher, 2 wins, 2 very close seconds. She's been right there every time. The last 3 races of her career, she's been an odds-on favorite and won 2 of those. I would argue that 2 starts back, the lone loss there as an odds-on favorite. I would argue that she ran the best race that day. And to me, it's probably the best race that Wasp has ever run, ironically. I mean, she just felt like she took a pretty tough beat in that race, did a lot of work up towards the front, made an early move into it, got run down by a closer at the end. It just feels like maybe she ran the best race in defeat there. Her most recent start, I guess, is the one that could worry you a little bit about Wasp. We last saw her on New Year's Eve over a sloppy track at this 1-turn mile distance. She got the job done there. It was far from an impressive victory. The race did not come back very fast, only a 65 buyer. Listen, she didn't run well in that race. She's had a little time since then. I would expect her to come back with a better effort here off a little bit of a layoff. Certainly her races 2 and 3 back suggest that she's better than that most recent race. So we'll see what she does in here. She's facing a much better field here. The problem that I have with Wasp in this kind of a race is that she's just facing some much better horses than she's faced so far in her career. There's nothing wrong with the races that she's run. This is a pretty significant step up in class. So she's facing some good horses here. She's got a lot to prove for a horse who is a very close third choice on the morning line, rather. She can win. She's got a great post on the outside. She's got tactical speed. But I do think she has to improve to beat this field, and she may not be much price in this race. The horse drawn right to her inside, I wanted to touch on critical value. It's all about whether or not critical value can turn her form around off of her 3 most recent starts, because her 3 most recent starts are not good. This is a filly who I've been a fan of. She started out her career like she was going to be pretty good, actually. She won the Maid of the Mist as a 2-year-old. She came back for her first start at 3 and won the Bowery. Both of those wins pretty impressive, really just sort of blowing those fields away through the stretch. She even came back 2 starts after that Bowery win last September at Belmont Park in a 1-turn mile and ran really well against open company allowance rivals. A good third to Thankful and Mrs. Danvers, a couple of horses who have since become stakes winners. The problem with critical value is her 3 most recent starts. They just aren't very good at all, and you have to sort of try to find a way to reconcile them, I guess, if you're going to try to go back to her in here. Maybe the muddy track could be an excuse for her most recent start. Maybe she just didn't care for that kind of going. She had never run on a wet track before, but she was pretty flat in that race. We'll see. Again, I'm a fan of this horse. I will not be surprised if she finds a way to jump back up and run one of her good races. One of her good races would give her a real chance in here, and she might be a fair price. She just feels like a pretty dicey situation based on her last couple of races. We have 2 in this field who ran against each other in the Bay Ridge at the end of last year. And I want to talk about those two horses here. The winner that day was Lucky Move, who's your money line favorite here. Let's take a look at the replay of that Bay Ridge, because this was a good performance for Lucky Move. It was only a 4-horse field. They absolutely walked on the early lead in here. This is the kind of race shape that could really work against a horse like Lucky Move, who doesn't have a lot of speed, but she just saved a lot of ground in there, didn't let the field get too far away. She came with a really good finish in there to close that race down. I thought that was an underrated effort for her. It looks, sort of right in line with all of her surrounding races, but she might have run even better than that to overcome that slow pace. Prior to that, she had won the Empire Distaff. Again, as mentioned earlier, her last 2 starts in open company. She didn't run poorly in those races, just wasn't quite good enough to get the job done. The question for her in here is, can she run her best race over the 1 turn mile, and will she get the right setup in here? If she runs her best race and gets any kind of pace at all, she's going to be very tough to beat. I do think she's the horse to beat. We'll see what happens with this 1 turn mile configuration. The other horse who we saw in that Bay Ridge was Firenze Freedom. This is an interesting horse in here at a price. Firenze Freedom is just a filly who feels like through racing, first as a 3-year-old and then last year, sort of towards the end of her 3-year-old campaign last year, it just feels like she was just getting better with racing, and distance really feels like a key for Firenze Freedom. She just seems like a filly who's better going longer than she is going shorter. I liked her allowance win 2 starts back, which was a 1 turn mile at Belmont, a race where she was over behind horses for a while. Once she got some daylight in the stretch, she came with a good run there to close that race down. I liked that performance. I thought she took even a step forward in that Bay Ridge that we watched. Not quite good enough, as we saw in the replay, couldn't get there, but never stopped trying. Another horse who was off of that slow pace, and as opposed to Lucky Move, who saved ground, she was on the outside the entire way. I thought that was an underrated performance for Firenze Fire. She's off the layoff here. Maybe she takes another little step forward over a distance she really likes. I feel like of all the horses who could be prices in here, she was the one that you wanted to maybe try to get into the mix somewhere. The horse who I prefer, if I'm going to try to beat the favorite Lucky Move, I would prefer to try to do it with the number 3 Espresso Shot. Just a filly who makes a lot of sense in here. There aren't a lot of wins on her card. She was a good horse early on. Back-to-back stakes wins over a 1 turn mile here at Aqueduct early in her career. She won the Eastview, then she won the Busher. After that, they just kept running her in just a bunch of stakes races, a bunch of really tough spots. She actually ran well in some of them. She didn't win any of them, but she ran well in some of them just without getting the job done. Came back towards the end of last year, and I thought she ran really well in this race. Let's take a look. This is a New York Stallion Series race, the Staten Island division. Espresso Shot ran really well. This is, one of the best races of this mare's career. Just showed really strong speed from the start to keep right up on the pace, which was a little bit surprising in that field. But she always traveled like she was going to win in there, took that race over readily, had the favorite in the race chasing her through the stretch, and just never gave that favorite any kind of a chance to get into the race. I thought that was a really strong performance from Espresso Shot. She exited that race earlier on this year, back in early January, to run in the La Verdad, again over 7 furlongs. She caught a muddy track. She wound up settling for 3rd that day, but all in all, I didn't think that was a poor performance either. Always down on the inside there, tried to come through on the rail into contention in the stretch. I feel like maybe that wasn't a great place to be. Got a little bit tired at the end and got outfinished, but I didn't think she ran as poorly as it may look on paper. And there in her race 2 back, I feel like it would give her a real chance in here. The 1 turn mile is no problem. She's got good tactical speed. She should have the jump on her main rival and Lucky Move. Not that horse is going to be easy to beat and hold off at the end, but I think if Espresso Shot can get back to something like she ran 2 starts back in that Staten Island, I think she could be very, very tough for the favorite to have to deal with in here. So that's where I'm going to go with my top pick in the race. We'll put the picks up there now. I went with Espresso Shot over Lucky Move, who is the horse to beat. I would have no problem with trying to throw Firenze Freedom, that one who does have to improve to win this race. I would have no problem throwing her in there at a price, though, to try to get a piece of this thing. I think that filly is okay and could get better as time goes on. Espresso Shot for me in the Biogio's Rose. It's the feature race at Aqueduct on Sunday, race number 7, approximate post time 4:24 Eastern time. Good luck.